All right, welcome back. This is going to be your third video in the series. This is your notes part two. I mean, you just had vocab in your first video, and we just did an overview in a second video. The second video is your notes part one. So this is notes part two. We are going into a deep dive of the epithelial tissue. Now, guys, fair warning on this. I'm not a fan of this section. I don't think you will be either. It's not the most fun. Probably going to be the most boring chapter you're going to do in anatomy physiology. I know. Take time, brace yourself, just breathe in. We can push through and do this, all right? Because these are the tissues. And you can't understand how the cool organs work without understanding the tissues that make those organs up. All right, so we got to get through the basics. But I promise after the tissues, things start getting more and more interesting as we go. All right, so we got to start someplace. Let's start right here with epithelial tissue. All right. The epithelial tissue, what we said in the last two videos briefly is the epithelial tissue forms a protective layer. It's a covering. I want you to think of saran wrap, all right? Every single body part has its own surrounding saran wrap vacuum sealed onto it, all right? Your skin is just one example of epithelial tissue, where it counts as one full organ surrounding your entire body, vacuum sealed to your muscles, and just keeping everything, helping keeping everything in or keeping bad things out. It is protective layer, but every organ inside your body also has its own covering. And that's what we're going to be talking about is the different kinds of epithelial coverings across your whole body. These protective layers have two sides. We got the surface, which is generally exposed to the outside, like the surface of your skin. And by outside, I don't mean outside your body, I just mean outside of whatever organ it's covering. And we have what's called the basement membrane. The underside is going to be anchoring it down to some kind of connective tissue. If you look at this picture over here, this is actually your skin. If I cut a chunk of your skin off, looked at it from the side in a microscope, you would see the top layer, which is the epithelial tissue we're talking about. And the second layer is connective tissue, which we'll get to later. And the third layer is fat, which is actually another type of connective tissue. Those are your three layers of skin, but we are focusing on this first layer, epithelial. And there's nothing up here holding it down. So it needs to be anchored underneath. This thick purple line is known as the basement membrane. It's this stickier connective layer that's going to be holding all of this on. This is a real picture of epithelial tissue from the side. Now you're not looking straight down at it. Looks like someone took it and peeled it up, and looking at it in a microscope, we can see the surface of it, the cells, there's a nucleus. So all of this is the cell. And then down here, it's slightly lighter. You may have to look closely, squint at it. I'm looking at a big screen, so it's easy for me. But if you're looking at it on your phone, you're going to look really close. It is a slightly lighter color because it's actually connective tissue, which doesn't hold on to the purple dyes as well as the rest of the cell. So it's much lighter. And that basement membrane is holding it on. That is your clue. That's going to show you where the surface is. And this one, it's a bit obvious because it's empty space up here, but other times it's not so obvious. So we find this basement membrane, and we can figure out how many layers there are and where the surface is. Before moving on with this is a really cool video that I found a couple years ago, actually, before we started 3D printing body parts. We actually had to grow it in a dish, and we grew those body parts. They were built in a similar way that they're built naturally in your body, by one cell reproducing through mitosis, and then another cell and another cell and another cell until a body part starts forming. In fact, I found this video maybe a week before the first body part was 3D printed. I had to reteach the lesson, but it's still a really cool thing. So let's check this out.
Ear mold. And you can see here the mold shaped like an ear. And then what we do is we start seeding these with cells. And then this is actually the fully engineered ear. You can see here the ear that's fully engineered. That's all cartilage around that.
What you're looking at right now is this is not blood. This is a protein juice. Right? This is human proteins floating in a liquid that's used to make the cells for this ear. They put actual human cells on the ear, and then they started reproducing and spreading and covering the mold. And now they have an actual living ear that they're going to attach to someone's head.
That was started with someone's ear cells.
That's right. That's right. We take a small piece of tissue from the patient's ear. We then grow those cells outside the body in large quantities, and we then coat the mold with the cells, and then you have the ear. The molds are designed to degrade over time. So as the tissue forms, the mold goes away.
And if that was for a child, would that grow with the child?
Yes, the body does recognize them as their own, and it does grow with the child.
Depending on the body part, a talent says the whole process can take 6 to 8 weeks.
So 6 to 8 weeks nowadays, they can do it in a matter of hours, just 3D printing, but it's not done the same way. This way you just saw is basically how your body actually makes them. All right, so like we said, different kinds of epithelial tissue are for different parts of your body. So we are going to differentiate those different kinds by the way they look. And there are two things that you're going to have to look for. And this is just something that you're going to have to memorize. I'm sorry about that. There's no way of just kind of really figuring it out. Just memorize these rules here. Two basic rules. One is layers, and the other one is going to be the actual shape of the individual cells themselves. So for the layers, we're going to memorize two words for this: simple or stratified. Simple is exactly what it sounds like. Easy. There's one layer. Boom, that's it. And then stratified means multiple layers, which is weird to think about cells on top of cells on top of cells. I first learned this word when learning geology. If you look at rock formations, they actually form in layers, and each layer represents a different geologic time. If you think of this as your body, as your skin, each layer represents one layer of skin cells, and then another layer on top of that, and then another layer on top of that. And just like with the rock formations, you can actually tell age based on that. Not your age, but the cell's age. With the cells, the ones at the bottom are going to be the youngest cells, and the ones on top are going to be the oldest cells. And in fact, probably dead cells at the top, if we're talking about your skin. The shapes, we're going to have 3 shapes. But I lied, by the way. There is a third layer word called pseudo-stratified. That's confusing, and I'm waiting to get to that. So let's move on. Shapes. We got 3 shapes that we're going to worry about: squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. Squamous sounds like squashed. If you look at this cell from the side, it looks like someone squished it. So squamous, squashed, it's flat. It's a thin, flat cell. And that is what your skin cells are made out of, and many other cells of the epithelial across your body. Then you got cuboidal, which is not going to be perfectly cube-shaped in your body. Nothing is perfectly formed in biology, but it's going to be cube-ish, where the top and the bottom are going to be roughly the same length as the sides. And then columnar, elongated, meaning stretched out. They're going to be taller than they are wide. That's it. Easy shapes. The hard part is remembering the word. The shape is easy: flat, regular, and long. Squamous, cuboidal, columnar. And then when we're going to put those words together, if you have one layer of squamous, it's simple squamous. If you have many layers of squamous, it's stratified squamous. Same thing. One layer of cuboidal is going to be simple cuboidal. Many layers of cuboidal would be stratified cuboidal. So these descriptions will combine, and that will be the name of the epithelium of the, we call, that's our fancy word for epithelial tissue. So let's take a look at simple squamous epithelium. And this is where I told you guys things are going to get a little boring. All right. Nothing I can really do about this, but we're going to push through. And this is stuff that you're just going to have to memorize for the test. Right. Simple squamous epithelium. One layer of flat cells. Very thin tissue. The substances are going to pass through very easily. And is used as a liner where diffusion is needed. Guys, you've learned diffusion in Bio 1. All right, remember diffusion? That is when things are coming and going from the cells or moving through the cell membrane. All right, we learned it alongside osmosis. All right, so this means this is where things need to come in and out of the cells, go to different parts of your body. So we're going to use this where that's going to happen more often, like inside your lungs. And a body part that we haven't talked about yet, we will talk more about the alveoli in the respiratory system. But this is a section of your lung where when you breathe the air in, that oxygen is going to move through the cells and into your bloodstream. So we're going to need the thinnest layer of epithelium possible so that oxygen can actually get through. If the tissue was too thick, the oxygen wouldn't get through there. Also in the capillaries, again, a word we have not talked about yet. The capillaries are the smallest blood vessels in your body. And these alveoli are surrounded by these tiny blood vessels. So the oxygen is going to go from the alveoli through the simple squamous epithelium, through the very thin layer of tissue, and into your blood vessels. And that's how they're going to get in. That's how you're going to get oxygen into your blood so it can travel around your body. Same thing happens in your digestive system too. Your digestive system is also surrounded by capillaries with that simple squamous epithelium so you can get nutrients. This is just a picture of your lungs. And then you zoom in on this little cluster here, you see these are alveoli, and they're surrounded by blood vessels, the capillaries. So oxygen travels into the blood, and now you have oxygen in your blood. All right. Simple cuboidal epithelium. Single layer of these cube shaped. Remember, they're not perfectly cubed shaped. They're cells, they're wibbly wobbly, but up and down is basically the same length as side to side. So cube-ish shaped. And it's a single layer. And here is that basement membrane we were talking about going around in a circle. So starting with that basement membrane, there is only one cell and then an empty space. So this still counts as one layer, so it's simple. And the cube shape makes it simple cuboidal. I want you to look at this picture and think of a hose, all right? This is a hose and you're looking inside of it, all right? The hose is facing you. So if I were to turn this on, you would get splashed in the face. That's what this is. You are going to have simple cuboidal epithelium wherever you have large things or large amounts of things that need to move, that can't just simply go through the cells like oxygen does. You're going to have these in different body parts like the ovaries. Ladies, ovaries are the body part that make your eggs in your reproductive system. Those eggs are the largest cells in your body, so you need a lot of space. So in order to leave the ovaries and go into your fallopian tubes, they're going to need this space to travel out of. It's like a doorway. And these cells line the doorway. Same thing with your kidneys, everybody. Your blood needs to enter your kidneys so that you can filter everything, all the bad stuff out. Your pancreas is going to be making chemicals for your digestive system. So is your liver. So they are going to have these oozing stuff out. Salivary glands in your mouth right now, this is where the saliva comes out of. And the thyroid gland produces hormones that regulate your metabolism and your growth. And so those hormones need to ooze out of this hole too. So these are lining large passageways. Moving on from there, simple columnar. Simple because it's still one layer. Look at this picture. Basement membrane is going to be down here. And then one layer of long column-shaped cells. Made of cells that are taller than they are wide and made mostly for absorption. These things are going to be sucking things in and into your bloodstream. You're going to find this a little bit in your lungs, not in the alveoli, but you find them in your lungs. But mostly, we are talking about your intestines. Right? They're going to be absorbing nutrients. When you eat food, it goes through your stomach, gets broken down, and then into your intestines. These intestines get all the food when your stomach is done with it. And this food content is still full of really good nutrients. You haven't absorbed any of those nutrients yet. That's what this is for. This picture doesn't show it, but these intestines are covered in blood vessels, covered in capillaries. And all these nutrients are going to get absorbed and then pass through and go into your bloodstream. So now you get nutrients spreading across your whole body. And here's where I said there was going to be a weird word. Right? This is called pseudo-stratified. This P is silent. Don't pronounce that P. It's pseudo-stratified. Pseudo means kind of, not really. Pseudo can also mean fake. So not stratified, not really stratified, but it kind of looks stratified. If you looked at it, you're going to think it's multiple layers. It's tricking you. Do not fall for this trick. You look over here. It looks like there's 2 layers, but if you look closely, basement membrane, and everything that's on the surface reaches down to the basement membrane. There is nothing on top of them. This is only 1 layer. Some of them are just happen to be smaller. So it looks like multiple layers. Actually, 1 layer of different size cells. The only place you're going to see this is in your respiratory system. So it is going to be covered in mucus because your entire respiratory system is covered in mucus. It's what catches all the dust and grime so you don't breathe it all in. This picture you're looking at is a trachea. I'm pretty sure this came from a cow. This was from a butcher's website. And if you look at this trachea, you see stripes. The white is hard cartilage and the slightly darker is soft cartilage. The hard cartilage is for protection, so you don't get hit and like stop choking automatically. And the soft cartilage is for bendability, so you can move your head up and down without cracking this thing. What you cannot see, if you need a microscope to look closely though, there is teeny tiny little microscopic hairs covering this entire thing. Like I said, you need a microscope to see it. These teeny tiny microscopic hairs are called cilia. And pseudostratified, which is only found in your respiratory system, had these hairs along with the mucus to help you catch all the dust and germs so they don't actually reach your lungs. At least, hopefully, most of them don't. And then again, real picture, artist picture, real picture. You got the basement membrane. And if you look at it, again, from here all the way up is 1 cell. It looks like a whole bunch of layers. It's just some of them are smaller. And here it actually does look like it's 2, but for the most part, it's all 1 layer in most places. So this is not actually stratified. We call it pseudo-stratified. And it's really hard to tell. The only way you're going to know is to look for this hair. Look for the cilia. That's your big hint. All right, that is it for the simple stuff. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but with stratified. I know. This is going to be a bit quicker, though, because you are now well acquainted with the shapes. So a bit easier now. Stratified squamous epithelium. Many layers of flat cells. Right? Many layers of thin, flat cells that make up your skin. If you look at this picture, actually look at this cartoony one first, you'll notice that they don't look too flat. That's because they're brand new. Look at the surface. Always look at the surface when we're dealing with stratified. That's where you're going to get the true shape. And these are flattened discs. Down here, they're not flattened yet because these are brand new cells. Down here, these are baby cells. They're just made and mitosis is happening, making more baby cells down here. As they get older, they will grow into their true shape. So always look at the surface. This is what we call superficial. This is a word that I didn't put in your terminology. I probably should have. Superficial means at the surface. and then deeper is younger. The superficial cells die and then get hardened, and they're going to act as a layer of protection. This is the real picture, by the way, of your skin cells. Down here is the basement membrane, all the young cells, and then they get older, they get flattened out. You're also going to find these in your mouth, but the superficial cells don't actually die. And they're going to be more like the ones in the middle, where they're much softer inside your mouth because you don't need as much protection there. Again, you're only going to find this on the outside of your body. This is your skin. Going back to the inside of your body, stratified cuboidal. Layers of cube-shaped cells. If you look at this picture here, you can barely make out the basement membrane going around, and we see 2 layers of cells before that empty space inside the hose. Right? So this is going to be like the other one like this, except where we need more protection. I mean, it's going to be closer to the surface. We'll have this for things like sweat glands that are actually in your skin and exposed to the outside world. Now, sweat is going to travel through this. Remember, it's like a hose. You're looking down the hose, and your sweat is going to ooze out of this and onto the surface of your body. And this down here is if I were to cut that hose open so we can see the inside. And so these are the cells on the inside. And this is a cartoony picture of the sweat gland down here, and this is that hose that we call a duct. And then those cells are inside the duct, lining the insides. Cartoony picture, real picture. The cartoony one, we can see better the basement membrane. And then this one wasn't drawn very well, but if it was, you would have seen much more cells and 2 layers. And we can see them more in this picture, 2 layers. Stratified columnar. So we got stratified squamous, stratified cuboidal, stratified columnar. Many layers of the long ones, but only long at the surface. Underneath, there's still baby cells going through mitosis. They didn't grow into their true shape yet. As they get older, they get pushed to the top and they will become longer. Right? These stratified columnar, you're not going to find too many places. They're actually pretty rare in your body. Small amounts can be found in the male urethra and in large ducts of some glands. I'm reading that word for word off here. But yeah, you're going to find this in the male's reproductive system because there's a lot going on between using this for sex and for urination. You're going to get a little extra protection. So again, basement membrane, many layers, small at the beginning, but as it gets older, pushed to the top, and it gets stretched out. Real picture. All right, so that's where we're going to call this video at an end. Take a break, take a breather. All right, that was a lot of information. I suggest coming back and checking this out multiple times to refresh your memory. And go on Google Classroom and see if I left any work for you. Until then, I will see you in the next video.